have another top 10 list for you guys. So, in this list, I am going to be talking about 10 books. Well, two of them are technically series, but altogether 10 that I feel everyone should read because I just feel these books are well written and give you all the feels, and they're just entertaining in my opinion. So, starting out with number 10, I am going to say The Elegance of the Hedgehog. Now, I really enjoyed this writing. It almost feels like kind of listening to either a video or podcast kind of thing. It basically really is a slice of life, realistic fiction kind of thing. There's real no going on adventure in this book. There's no magic or anything. It is contemporary, realistic fiction. So in that way, it might not be for everybody because I know a lot of people do like escapism, fantasy, sci-fi, that kind of thing. And while there are people that do read contemporary and realistic fiction, a lot of people say, I don't read it. A lot of other people say, I don't read it because I can go outside and see what's going on in the world. But me, I like fiction that tackles real world issues. I do love fantasy. My favorite book is dystopian, and I love other things, but I also do like things that are rooted in reality. So, The Elegance of the Hedgehog is told in a dual perspective, which I thought was interesting because it's pretty much marked as like an adult book, so it's not like YA or anything. Adult contemporary, I guess you would call it. But it is told, like I said, in a dual perspective from two very different people and two different ages. So the book is by a French author. I think her name is Muriel Barbary. I think that's what her name is. I'm pretty sure I got that right. So the book is translated and everything. And it tells the story of a concierge named Renee. And she is like the concierge for like this apartment building, basically, for like the high class kind of people. And she loves to learn, right? She is a self taught person. She likes, to learn about different things, languages, history, etc. But she feels that in her society, she has to hide it because people don't expect somebody like her to be, I guess, of higher intelligence. Hello. So, yeah, she basically hides her knowledge, her intelligence, and everything. I'm from Illinois. And then there is Paloma, who is, I think she's 12 going on 13, and she's one of the residents in the apartment complex. And Paloma basically feels that everyone around her is fake, right? And her and Renee end up crossing paths basically and getting to know each other. And it basically is just about their life and how they perceive society and stuff. So, like I said, it's very well written, just not like the most exciting book. And I know a lot of people you know, like books with a lot of action and stuff. Um, but if you're looking for something that is just kind of, I guess you would say, philosophical or thought provoking, I would give this one a try. And coming in at number 9, and I put this at 9, even though it's well written, because it's been a while since I've read it. Um, Otherwise, it might have been a little bit higher because I don't remember all the details. What's your favorite pet? My cats. Um, but I'm gonna say for number 9, Challenger Deep, and that is by Neil Shusterman, um, who wrote some other series like Scythe and Unwind and stuff that I'm still working my way through. But Challenger Deep is a standalone book that deals with mental illness. It is about a um, teenager. I think his name was Caden, and Caden is basically hallucinating, right? And he's not doing very well in school, even though he's, a good student and everything. People are just noticing that he's not himself and everything. And the story goes back and forth between him in reality and him in this world that he has made up on a ship, and they're going to um, Challenger Deep, I think, or was it the name of the ship? No, I think they're going to a point in the ocean and stuff. And it just talks about mental health and how people with mental illness are treated and stuff like that. And yeah, it's obviously very different from like Unwind or whatever, because you have the slight fantasy aspect of what's going on in his head, then the reality of him in the real world and everything. So I think that one was really balanced very well. So then, um, at number 8, I am going to say Looking for Alaska. So originally, this was like my least favorite John Green book, but then I reread it and I watched some videos because I always like to go back sometimes if I didn't like completely hate a book, go back and reread and see some of the things that I missed. Because sometimes when you read a book, there's just like the general things that you take in, right? But then when you go back and you reread, especially after listening to reviews and stuff, you see some of the things that you missed, like the messages, the symbolism that the author used. And I felt that way with Looking for Alaska when I reread it for the second time. Because at first I didn't like the character of Alaska. So Looking for Alaska is about a teen named Miles. And Miles is obsessed with famous last words. And he wants to go to this boarding school that his father went to kind of like search for the great perhaps, right? Kind of see what else is out there in the world. And he meets a group of friends, and one of them is a girl named Alaska. And he basically falls for Alaska and everything. And when I first read it, I'm like, why are people obsessed with this girl and everything? Like, she's not the only girl in the school and stuff. But then when I reread it, especially after um, watching people's videos and analysis and everything, reviews on it, I began to see what the author was trying to say. In that these people were building up Alaska to be something that she wasn't. They were making her something that they wanted her to be. Not that she wasn't any of those things, but you know, people can be funny and insightful and good at poetry or good at art and stuff. But sometimes you build up people um, to where they're not people anymore. And I've heard other YouTubers say this. There was a YouTuber called the Gothic Alice. She hasn't made a video in I think like a couple years now, but I think her videos are still on YouTube. she made one about idol culture and stuff, and basically about how society builds up, like especially like famous people and stuff, build them up on this pedestal and put them to a position where they are no longer seen as actual human beings. And I think that's the point of looking for Alaska, is that in a way they treat Alaska more like an object of desire than a person with flaws and things. And so the book talks about, um, that just realism of being a person, grief and forgiveness and just being human, making mistakes and stuff. And I really liked the miniseries that they did. I think it was on Hulu. That was really well done. At number 7, I am going to put The House on Mango Street. This one might have been a little bit higher, but it is kind of a short book. It is told in vignette style, which I really enjoyed. I think it's one of the first like vignette books that I've read. I've seen TV shows and stuff that have done like little story episodes, but I didn't read a book like that before. And it might be a little difficult for some people because it doesn't have like a full beginning, middle, and end that some people are used to. But if you like short stories and you like contemporary, coming of age, slice of life kind of things, I think you really like this one. It is about a girl named Esperanza, and she is if I remember correctly, a Mexican American girl who is living in Chicago, I believe. And it basically is about her life and the everyday goings on around her and stuff. So it's told from first person point of view. Um, Sandra Cisneros, I believe, is the author, and I apologize if I've said that wrong. But definitely, it's worth the read. It's probably something you can read in a day. So then, I think we are at number 6. At number 6, I'm going to say Zombies versus Unicorns. Now, this is one of my absolute favorite books, but it is short stories. If I was just making a top 10 list of my favorite books, this was definitely going to probably be like at number 2, number 3. But it is a collection of stories featuring either a zombie or a unicorn. And I just love the twist that these authors used on these stories, because you have a story with unicorns that are venomous, and you have a story where the zombies may not be the most terrifying thing in the world. There's a really hilarious one with a unicorn and an evil wizard and stuff like that. There's one called Children of the Revolution, where a girl is babysitting for a very strange woman and find out the children aren't exactly human. There's just like different perspectives on these things. And yeah, I think even if you don't like YA, you might like this book. Okay, so now give me another pen, please.
Okay.
This one's running out of ink. So I believe we are on number 5 now. And hello to everybody that has joined. So at number 5, I'm going to say The Giver, the series. Now, if I was just going to say The Giver on its own, I might put it higher, because Sun was okay, which was the 3rd book. Thank you, Nate. And I liked the first half of Sun. I liked most of Sun, but the series could have ended a little bit better. But I love the first book, and after a reread, I really like the second book. The last 2 books kind of tie them together, especially like the last one and everything. But the Giver series is dystopian fiction. The Giver is about a society where people have everything controlled, right? So everybody is assigned a job at like age 12, and one of the jobs is to be a birth mother that gives birth to the children of the community. So when you get older, you can apply for a spouse, right? Like your whole life is controlled and laid out for you. Like the elders, the council or whatever, they pick your job, they pick your spouse, they pick your children, stuff like that. So you can apply for a spouse, and if you get one, you're paired up, and then you can apply for children. So it's a mom, dad, and 2 children for a family unit if you're approved. So mom, dad, brother, sister. And the story is about a boy named Jonas who is chosen to be the receiver of memories, because these people have no idea about the outside world. They don't have pets. They don't know what snow is. Weather is controlled. They don't know what color is. So he basically is chosen to receive memories from the past and everything. And stuff kind of goes on from there. So it is about being human, being able to make mistakes, make choices, experience life in the world and everything. And then there is Gathering Blue, which is the very opposite. It is about a girl named Kira who lives in a very rural world. So they can see color and everything. I'm pretty sure they can pick their jobs and stuff. But like people who are disabled and stuff are basically thrown out to the wolves, basically. It's kind of if you can't survive, you're on your own kind of world. The women are not allowed to learn to read and stuff like that. So it's very opposite of Jonas's world. Like they have the right to hear music and see colors and stuff, but only certain people are allowed certain privileges and stuff. And then, like I said, the other books, they kind of bring them together. But they are well written. They do make you think. And I think, if anything, you should at least read The Giver and then Gathering Blue. You can read Gathering Blue and The Giver in any order. Just the next 2, I would recommend reading those in order. So let's see. Okay. So we are at number 4. Maybe we're at number 4. Let me check my list here. Okay. Hmm. So I believe I am on number 4, right? Let's see. Ah, yes. Okay, so then at number 4, I am going to say the Phantom Tollbooth. Just because this one is very lighthearted, very whimsical, um, definitely happier than the rest of these books. So the Phantom Tollbooth is about a boy who is very bored, and one day a tollbooth shows up into his room, and he takes his little car through it, and he goes into like this whimsical fantasy world. Um, like there's a dog with a clock built into him, and I believe his name is Tick, but he actually talks. And then his brother ticks, but his brother was named Talk. So like TikTok kind of thing. Um, so there's that. There are people that instead of growing up, they like live in the sky and they like grow down and stuff like that. Basically, like another version of Alice in Wonderland, except with a boy character, except instead of a girl character. And I just found it like really fun and amusing to read. And number 3, people might be upset that I put these two on the same list. And I hate, because my number 1 has some similarities to this. But I hate when people say that my number 1 pick is just a copy of this book, because outside of like the basic premise, it's very different. And I also hate when people compare them, that they only talk about how violent this book is instead of like the characters and the backstories and how well this author did keeping up with several characters for this story, because there's like starting out 42 people or something, and it's just so much more than just violence. And of course, I'm talking about Battle Royale. So Battle Royale is a story about an alternate Japan. They live, I forget what it's called, but basically, like I said, it's not like a futuristic Japan in like the dystopian thing. It's like an alternate timeline kind of thing. And I think it's every year. It's been a while since I've read the book, but they have this thing called Battle Royale, basically, where they take like a busload of kids, they knock them out, and they put them on an island to kill each other off. And, there's problems going on in the country with unemployment and kids not behaving and stuff. So, of course, the government, because governments are always black jobs in these dystopian alternate stories, they have this crazy idea that things will be kept under control with this battle royale. And the thing is, they have these collars on, which will go off and basically kill them after 3 days if nobody wins, right? So it's not like they can just cheat their way out because, hello, um, if there's not a single person standing after 3 days, everybody just dies. And so, as you can imagine, the book is quite violent, but there's also a lot more to it, right? There's the inner thoughts of these kids and some other things. So, it's still thought provoking in a way, but suspenseful, entertaining, sad. Yeah, I just think Battle Royale is a lot more than what people say it is. And then number 2 is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I've not seen the movie yet, and I hear it's really good. I really want to. But this book was just so sad and thoughtful. From Illinois. So this is about a boy named Charlie, and he is basically writing to somebody, right? It almost is kind of like he's writing to you. And we don't really know too much about who he's writing to. Um, we don't have a lot of information about like where he's from and stuff like that. We're just in his thoughts, right? In his thoughts about growing up, making friends, family issues. There is talk about friendship, relationships, domestic violence, you know, putting up with things, loving yourself, self worth, and stuff like that is just really well written. And the ending was, oh my god, that was so sad. And then finally, if you've been on this channel, you should know what my number 1 would be. My favorite series, my favorite book is The Hunger Games. And like I said, I hate that it's always compared to Battle Royale. Yes, Battle Royale came out first, but people just look at the basic premise and they kind of write it off. The fight to the death thing is like one of the only things it has in common. Probably a couple more things, but that happens within stories. Um, the Hunger Games talks a lot about poverty and prejudice. Um, and there's so many things woven in there, right? There are some things that are kind of surface level, and some things that are like deeper in there, like more symbolic and everything. But if you're paying attention, you know what's in there. And it's one of the books that I reread a couple of times to pick that symbolism up, right? Because on the surface level, it is rich versus poor, but there's also a lot of other things like, war, obviously, and war PTSD, how war is sensationalized, how people who've been through war and, have experienced it, might not be heard in the way that people think they are being heard. Kind of their concerns are, about how people view things are ignored and pushed back behind the sensation and everything. The fact that violence sometimes is entertainment for people, that people don't see certain other people as human beings, whether that is based upon the tone of their skin color or their, wealth or lack of wealth. There's just so much in that story that talks about the real world and just human flaws and everything. And she does not demonize one side over the other. There is no, this side is all good or that side is all bad. other than it being dystopian and everything and futuristic, it pretty much is realistic in a lot of things. The fear of things that are different, the fear of losing your power and everything over things that, you know, people who are different or don't think like you are coming to get you, you know, aka Snow, in those stories. That trying a new way of life is scary for some people to the point that they, do destructive things. Like I said, yeah, just poverty, prejudice, ignorance, stuff like that. There's just so much in those stories. Depression, family, grief, um, guilt, fear, If you haven't read The Hunger Games, especially, since people keep comparing it to Battle Royale, I would tell you to just at least try the first book because it's well written. Yes, it is YA. Yes, it has its flaws and everything, but it is quite deep for something that is marketed towards YA. And I'm not saying that YA can't be deep. I'm just saying that people don't usually expect it. So it is. Anyways, that is my top 10 books that I think everybody should read. Just go over my list, make sure I didn't forget anything. Yep. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye bye.